A cinch. All right, seriously, on the tables, you might have seen, if I could just reach in here and grab one, commandments for retirement. We're asking everyone to please grab one of these little slips, and we're asking you to fill one of these things out and put it in the jar. There are directions on the paper. Everybody can read. Hold on up. Read it for you. Okay, and if you can then fold it and put it into the jar. Okay. I've been told the desserts are ready, and we're going to have the head tables go up first, but now we're going to switch the order. The back tables, table 13, you will follow the head tables, and then table 12, and 11, and 10. Trying to be diplomatic here. Everybody play nice in the sandbox. We're all diplomatic. Be diplomatic. Okay, can I have the head table go up? There's coffee in the back. And then you can grab some dessert. And chocolate. Somebody's phone's ringing. Okay, so we're going to start our roast. Also known as everything you want to know about Bill's life for the last 10 years, but we're afraid to ask. And a few other
you don't want to know.
Juicy tidbits.
We do. Want to know.
So, most of my stories focus around mission trips. And this was one of the things that Bill got us interested in doing, was going on mission trips. And the first one, that I went on with Bill was first of all, it was a 2-day adventure to get to this place. Down to Biloxi, Mississippi. So imagine you're crammed in a car with Bill.
Not funny!
All his tools, tile cutters, drop cloths, plus what you need for a week, clothes. And Bill said, no, you don't need all that. Just pack light. We'll wash them somewhere, even if we gotta take it down to a stream or something. Wash them there. But, so Biloxi, Mississippi, we stopped halfway at his brother Jimmy's house in Tennessee, stayed there overnight after driving 11, 12 hours, getting up at the crack of dawn, being on the road since, I don't know, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then getting into Biloxi around 6, 7 o'clock that evening. And a lot of the places did give us a welcoming dinner, either the night we arrived or somewhere during the week. And it was your typical potluck chicken dinners with salads and everything else. Now, Biloxi was a little bit different in that we had cabins. We stayed in cabins that were built underneath a high school football stadium. We weren't at a hotel, Motel 6, no.
Hey,
we
you stayed at Yankee Stadium.
Hey, I'm working here. So, we were in bunks underneath a high school football stadium. Now actually, believe it or not, they had pretty good food. They had plenty of snacks. I mean, we went back for lunch and they put out more stuff. And it was just kind of unique to be sleeping in bunks underneath a football stadium, which I never have done that before. And, every place we went to usually had a young man who really didn't like to help, even though we were working on that person's house. And I don't know, I'm going to call that person Bubba. A lot of times we had a Bubba who was great. Oh, you're doing a great job. But he's back on the couch watching reruns of some 1960s sitcom. But Bubba was not that type of person who really wanted to work up a sweat. And Bill Rinko always found the Bubba. And, last time, Bubba, you get off that couch and help us? Doesn't matter where we were. Bill always found out where that Bubba was. And, our usual work was painting. Bill had to have a flooring job, preferably tile flooring. Bill would drive an extra 20, 30 miles if it meant he could put in a tile floor. He lived and breathed for tile. I had to have some tile work there. And he'd make sure that lasted a good at least 3 or 4 a day. Because that's his forte. That's his forte. Tile flooring. I mean, floating floor, hardwood, carpeting, that's all right. Tile floor, Bill's your man. So, we had a lot of painting to do in other places. Larry Mayer and I, learned how to do a floating floor. Now, if you've never done a floating floor, it's not too bad, but, I'm the type of guy, I got a hammer, a couple screwdrivers, and maybe a socket wrench or 2. That's my tools. So I think Larry's about pretty much the same way. So, we somehow mastered how to do a floating floor. We had some other painting to do around. Larry's going to tell you a little story. I'm going to leave it for Larry. We had to patch a ceiling. And Bill's already laughing because he knows this one. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave a little suspense about that. But, and then at the end, we worked on this one lady's house, an African-American lady, and I was in there painting her bathroom around the throne and everything. I drove 1,200 miles to paint a bathroom for an African-American lady in her bathroom. So, hey, you do things all over the country. So, she was very grateful that we worked on her house. And the last day, she laid out a nice spread. We couldn't eat inside because everything was still the paint was drying or whatever. So we ate out on her front lawn. We had a nice chicken dinner with all the fixings, the cornbread and the grits and dessert, and it was great. And, you had to have seconds. She made sure you had seconds. You weren't going home hungry. So this was our first mission trip. And at the end, we also had a chance to drive over to New Orleans. And we drove through and we really could see the damage from Hurricane Katrina. The whole 9th Ward was completely devastated. This is where a lot of people had lost lives from the flooding, Lake Pontchartrain, the levees broke, and that was overnight. And the people just, during the night and early morning, they had to scramble up to rooftops if they were able to get out and get rescued that way. So unfortunately, many people didn't. So there was, we saw that, the devastation of the flooding during Hurricane Katrina and the whole 9th Ward, which was just basically abandoned, never to be rebuilt. So we had a chance to get into New Orleans, and we had a nice dinner at the Crescent City Brew House. And this is one of the places where we picked up, or actually Bill, I had to correct myself, my notes. Bill bought an item for both of us, and I'm wearing mine tonight, the tie. The remnants, or the memento from the Crescent City Brew House. The only exception is my tie. The word brew house has been kind of darkened in. Because, I was teaching school the following year, and I figured all I need is leaning over the desk of a little 4th graders, Sally Jean or something, and reading the word Crescent City Brew House, and then that child, Mr. Doyle, what's a brew house? Were you in a brew house? So I figured, no, just take a black magic marker and mark it. Bills, on the other hand, is in all its glory, Crescent City Brewhouse.
They didn't complain.
So, but again, this was our first trip down to Biloxi, and many more to come and to hear about. So we had, again, a two-day trip back, returning, stopping at his brother Jimmy's house again, and then making it back from Tennessee all the way up to Plymouth, Connecticut. So a lot of driving, 2 days down and 2 days back. So. All right, at this point, I would like to introduce Jim Kliniski, the president of the Terryville Rotary Club. So Jim, if you can come up.
I'm here for, dual purpose tonight. One is the, this isn't working, is it? Yeah. I don't know if I need it.
You need it.
Oh, okay. A dual purpose tonight. One is, of course, just to, as a friend of Bill's, to come and wish him well and a new start, a new beginning for him. And the other one is, when we found out that he was retiring, Bill has been an active member of the Rotary Club for a number of years, and the Rotary Club wanted to do something special for Bill, and we figured this is the best opportunity to do it, so that, his friends, his family, the community can be witness to what we're going to do in just a minute. The Rotary Club, in case you don't know it, is one of the oldest service organizations in the world. It was started, I think, in 1904 in Chicago. And it's a service organization, as I mentioned. We have about 2 million members worldwide, and the motto of Rotary is service above self. So whether it be in Terryville or Thomaston, Plymouth, what we're trying to do is give back to our community, and also join with members around the world to work on world projects. One of the biggest things that Rotary has ever done is the near eradication of the disease of polio. So I'm sure people in this room remember what polio was and what polio is. Some people in the schools today have no idea, and that's a wonderful thing. We hope they never have to know about it. The gentleman who started Rotary's name was Paul Harris. And when Paul moved out to Chicago, he moved his business to Chicago. He didn't know anybody. So he started inviting other businessmen from his building to join him for lunch. And they began going from one office to the other office to the other office, rotating, and it became Rotary, the Rotary Club. Well, Paul Harris, he was the founder, and that was about 100 years ago, a little more than 100 years ago. And now, as I said, we've got over 2 million members worldwide. We are in more nations in the world than the United Nations has members. But we have a permanent seat at the United Nations. And again, it was all started by this guy, Paul Harris. So, because of, in recognition of what Paul Harris has done, the highest award that Rotary gives to any of its members is called the Paul Harris Award. You can go out and buy a Paul Harris Award. If you make a $1,000 donation to the Rotary Foundation International, you can become a Paul Harris fellow. But that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is, as we're doing with as we're doing with Bill here tonight, is to recognize somebody where the club puts in the money. The club buys this fellowship for somebody that we feel is really deserving of receiving it. And in case of Bill, we really feel as a club in Terryville that Bill exemplifies the motto of service above self. Okay, so, I'm sure most of you are... Bill left a career doing flooring installation as a contractor, went back to school and earned a degree so he could go into the ministry. And, you know, we talked about what were the trips that you did? Mission trips, of course. The mission trips, I know that Bill has also been involved with Habitat for Humanity. He's involved with the food pantry in Terryville. He's chaplain for the Terryville Police Department. I know he lays down your carpet and paints your walls at the church. He mows the lawn, you know, anything, service above self, and that's Bill. So Bill, if you would stand, please, for just a moment. I'm going to put this down. This is the only time that I call him Reverend, because in Rotary, everybody is equal. We don't use chief, we don't use Reverend, we don't use doctor. It's all on a first name basis. But tonight, the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International recognizes Reverend William W. Hawley, is hereby named a Paul Harris Fellow in appreciation of tangible and significant assistance given for the furtherance of better understanding and friendly relationships among peoples of the world. So, Bill. It's a Paul Harris Hotel thing, so
You know what? Doesn't matter.
okay, once again, congratulations. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Back to mission trips. Now, the next year, I missed the next trip down to Biloxi, Mississippi. But there were two mission trips, 2 years that went down to Biloxi. And Bill Rinko, I know, is going to be talking about some of the things that happened in Biloxi in the second year. So my next one that I went on was to McDowell County, West Virginia. And the movie Deliverance came up. Where I was banjo music. And the word deliverance or that banjo music kind of rung out for the entire week. But McDowell County, West Virginia is the southernmost county. And for us, sometimes if we needed extra supplies, we actually drove 20 miles east to Virginia to a Lowe's store to actually get some extra materials. This was in conjunction with Hope Force.
Craig Snow.
Craig Snow, that's right, was the person in charge of Hope Force, and so we were actually teaming with them. So again, this is a very poor area. One of the towns actually was called War, just like it's spelled, yep, W-A-R. And this was, I believe, was this the one, was the home of the Rocket Boys. They had that movie.
Near there.
Okay. Now, the Rocket Boys actually was a movie that was about, and this is a true story, about 4 or 5 local high school boys who entered a science fair competition, won the competition, and many of them earned scholarships to go on to college. And after that, most of them actually got jobs working for NASA. So it was like that big success story for the entire county, that these boys made it out. And the movie actually portrays how, you know, the fathers all wanted the sons, you're going to follow me into the coal mine. I have done it, and my father have done it, and, you know, you're going to keep up that tradition. So some of them actually had to break from that family tradition of working in coal mines and pursuing, you know, life beyond a coal mine job and going on to college. These areas were so poor that, you know, if their car died, there was no junkyard. They just seemed to push it off to the side yard or behind the house. So when you drove through this area, and we happened to, this is all you saw was, you might have one car that was functioning in kind of a dirt driveway, but then all the other cars that they've had over the years were all kind of off to the side yard or behind the house. Very, very poor area. It wasn't uncommon to see train tracks 10 to 15 feet from the front of the house. And again, depressed area because so many of the coal jobs had been lost. At the height, there might have been 100,000 jobs. When we were down there, it was probably less than 20,000 that were still working in the coal mines. But still, there were coal trucks and trains that would be rumbling through at all hours of the day or night. And if you were sleeping or trying to sleep, you might be awakened by a couple big triaxle dump trucks going down the road with coal from the coal mine, or a train that you might hear 5 miles off in the distance carrying out the coal. But this is also an area that we worked on a house that was going to be then used for future people to come down and stay. We stayed, believe it or not, in a school similar to a school that I taught in, like in Watertown, an old Baldwin school that was probably built around in the early 1900s and probably was then closed in the late 1980s or early 1990s. This became their community center, believe it or not. They had a kitchen downstairs so we could eat breakfast and have meals down there. We slept upstairs in an old bed, or like an old classroom that they actually had built bunk beds. At the far end, one end, there was a shower unit and up in the bathroom, so if somebody needed to get up, and here's a bunch of old guys, you know, making runs in the night and turning on the light, and oh crap, here's somebody waking us up. We had one big air conditioner, one of these big old clanky things that was probably 50 years old that would be clanking along all night long. So again, trying to sleep in that condition, get up at the crack of dawn, this was definitely, and I'm thinking of all the trips we were on, it wasn't the hottest, but it was definitely the most humid of any place that we worked in. It was like jungle humidity. It almost rained every afternoon, somewhere around 3 o'clock, 3:30, for about 20 minutes, a half hour. It stopped, and then it would just, you could see the steam rising up off of the, you know, the roads. It was unbearable in terms of the humidity. And of course, what's the best thing to be trying to do in that? Painting! And boy, we did quite a bit of painting in this house. We also, they were finishing up a smaller, like a shower house for people who would be coming down. Bill's brother, Jim, who lived in Tennessee, decided to join us that year. And he wore like a one-piece overall, like a type of, say it again? Tyvek.
Oh, no.
And he spent almost the entire week under this house, working. I think it was the electrical or whatever he was doing.
You gotta bring the electrical up to code.
Bring up the electrical to code. But at the end of the day, when he came out, you couldn't tell if he was working from a coal mine or where this poor guy had been working. He was like pitch black. You could see the whites of his eyes and his bright shiny teeth. And everything else was black as coal. And the next day he'd be right there again, going down underneath the house. So it was an adventure for him, I would say. Did we have a Bubba? We had a Bubba on this trip, but the Bubba actually tried to help. The Bubba wasn't that sharp though. He was a few short of a dozen. Kind of challenged, educationally challenged, we will say is the correct terminology today. But it was a very depressed area. But this was also one of the areas where, at the end of a hard day, we could kick back and relax and have a nice cold whiskey. We didn't have that in most places because we were staying on church property. And on church property, so at the end of the week we could go out to a restaurant. But this place, just about almost every day, we popped open a couple of nice cold brews and could sit back and talk about things, and you kind of learned some things. Sitting there talking to Pastor Bill and finding out some of the things. And one of the things, I think this is where I learned that in his earlier life, Bill actually owned a Widowmaker motorcycle. He drove one of those things. These are the kind of, if you ever see them going down the highway, they're like, whoever is driving, not Bill, but whoever's driving like 90 miles, 100 miles an hour, and they go zipping past you. Those are the kind of motorcycles. So supposedly, before he got into even tile work, I found out that he owned one of these. And I guess it was like, he had to decide, do I want to live and have a full life and raise a family, or maybe just make it a few more years? So obviously he made a good choice and decided to give up the Widowmaker motorcycle. But see, these are the things you kind of learn about people when you're sitting around after a hard day and having a nice cold brew. Now, coming back at the end of the week, we had one of the scariest trips just trying to return. At the end of the week, there was a train derailment on the main road leading out of town. And I was like, oh crap, what do we do now? How do we get home? Well, you can take a 3 to 4 hour detour, if not longer, around us. Or there's the coal road. You can go up that mountain coal road and just keep going and follow that up. And it's kind of a shortcut to kind of get you back down to the main road. So it was either the 3 to 5 hour detour that way or the coal road. Yes, we took the coal road. So, coal road is a gravel road. That's kind of a steep road. And we started up, and there were some trucks coming down. We made sure we were far enough over. I think Bill Rinko was driving on this one, if I remember correctly. And as we got about halfway up, there were the darkest storm clouds I think I've ever seen. These clouds were pitch black. And I was like, oh boy, we're in trouble now. So we get up there, we get up towards the top, and it's like, now the rain begins. And these aren't little raindrops. These are things that like smack on the windshield. They must have been like giant ice pellets, like 300 feet up, and then they just quick melted and smacked right on the windshield. And I'm thinking, oh crap, we're done for it. They're gonna find us like 2 weeks from now. We're gonna be down in that gully. We're never gonna make it out. Don't just find our bodies out there. So I think I prayed. I didn't have a rosary, but I think it was like the prayers of a rosary is fast. Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee, our Father in heaven. And as fast as I could to go through as many as I could. And somehow, the storm just seemed to shift a little. We kind of just brushed the edge of the storm and made it down the other side. And we're like, thank you, God. And yes, I will be going to church for the rest of my life. Money will be coming in the plate. Don't worry about that. So, this was another of our adventures. The people in all of these areas, we are very grateful for all that we do for them. And, you know, very poor area. Some of us contributed money. This was one of the things I've done. They have an annual Christmas party at that community center. There's a little auditorium, and they have a Christmas party, an annual Christmas party. And this is like the highlight for some of these people who live in that area. Again, very depressed area. A lot of drug abuse, you know, so many people out of work, you know, with the coal mines that have shut. So it's a tough area. And, you know, thinking back and over the years, you know, sometimes, you know, you think, wait, you know, life's not good, and you know all you got to do is, hey, just remember McDowell County, West Virginia. It helps to keep things in perspective. So that's our third trip. The next person I'd like to introduce is Ray DuPont.
So I'm sure some of you know that.
Hold it close up.
Oh, okay. How's that better?
Thanks, better,
Okay.
thanks.
Got the ham in the refrigerator.
So, there's Reverend Bill. I found out Thursday I could have gotten free tickets to a Red Sox game tonight. I skipped that so I could come here to have so much fun.
I'm impressed.
You on. I have a couple things to say. I'll try to keep it shorter than one of Bill's sermons. I might need some forgiveness for it. Before Bill was our minister, my memory is a little shaky on some of this. He spent a year or so with us, learning, and also as a youth minister. And he was very helpful. But we happened to be looking for a carpet at the time, and Bill, being the generous man that he is, offered to put a carpet in my basement for me. And in lieu of the labor, we made a promise to help him out with the youth group if there was something that he needed. So it was a good deal for everybody. So the day of the installation, Bill shows up at my house with a fan, I believe, and a carpet. Went outside, we brought the carpet in the house, put it down in the basement. And then, yeah, I asked him if he needed help, and he's like, no, I'm all set. So I closed the door, went back upstairs, and a couple minutes later, I hear this thumping, and there's grunting, and banging, and all this. It's like, I don't know where the people came from to help me. But there was all this noise going on in my basement. So a little while later, he comes upstairs, about half hour later, and he's got a bunch of scrap in his hand, and he says, I'm all done. And I was really surprised, because it was only about a half an hour, and he said he was finished. So, let me make sure I don't lose what I was doing. So then he left, and I was a little surprised, and I opened the basement door, and there wasn't anybody down there. So I was like, wow, who made all that noise? And that was my first thought. There might be some divine intervention involved, that he had other people help. They came from somewhere else. So maybe the ministry was a good calling after all. Bill, did I tell you I got free tickets today?
Didn't tell me.
Bill went on to continue his calling elsewhere to grow as was necessary in his learning of the ministry. And after a while, he came back to us again. After you get to know Bill, you realize that he's a very headstrong individual.
Really?
Well, we all know that, but actually in more ways than one. A couple times a year I noticed that he would have like a Band-Aid or a cut on his head. So I don't know if he was using his head as a hammer or if it was part of his head-grown ministry that he would always seem to somehow have a little scratch up on the top of his head. Him doing the good work of the Lord, I imagine. But Bill does have one trait that is very unique. When he gives a sermon and he gets excited, he starts screeching and raises his voice about 4 octave levels. And, you know, I think the real purpose, but we don't realize this, it's not just he's excited, he wants to make sure that anybody that's asleep wakes up. Did I tell you I got tickets for it?
Want me to hold it where you get the tripod? Is it in there?
No, it's not.
Not in there?
When we needed carpet, him and his divine crew stepped up and made sure that we got what we needed. When the wheel fell off my trailer, he was the first person I thought of to give me a ride home to tools. And he managed to squeeze that in between 2 lunch appointments. Maybe he ate lunch twice, I'm not sure about that. I know you said you anytime we've ever needed help unloading trucks for the food pantry or for the Friends of Music fundraisers that we've raised, Bill would always offer hand. And anytime that I needed spiritual guidance and other people do, he's always been there. So thank you for being there, and you've been, God bless.
We also have another special guest who we just found out would like to come up and say a few words. Paul Nimchek from the food pantry.
Thank you, my friend.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Nimchek. I'm associated with the food pantry. I'm the treasurer of the Plymouth Community Food Pantry. Some of the faces I see out here, I know you're familiar also with the food pantry. And Bill has been a premier supporter of the food pantry during his whole tenure here in Plymouth. And his support on the board of directors, I don't know if you know he's on the board of directors.
Not anymore.
And again, his guidance during that, in board meetings and so on, has been, so important for the success of the food pantry in Plymouth. And all the work that he's gotten out of a lot of you, and the support that you've supplied to the food pantry is something that makes it go. It makes it go. The number of volunteer hours we estimate at the food pantry represents at least 4 or 5 full-time paid people. If we had to pay those people, and there'd be no way we could really do that. Although he's a great fundraiser as well, and the food pantry, from the standpoint of fundraising, has been very successful with the guidance of people like Reverend Bill. And again, on behalf of the food pantry, we certainly are going to miss him. I heard somebody, the last person, say something about his voice changing periodically. I kind of noticed that at board meetings too. When something is either he's very for something, or if something he's not so sure we should be talking about, I see that fluctuation in there. So it kind of gets us back on track at that particular point. But again, very special man. I've had the good fortune over the last couple of years being on the board to be able to work with him, and he's just been tireless throughout that period of time. We're going to miss him because he certainly has been like I say, he's been a real pillar for that food pantry. So some of you may have to step up now as he leaves, so that we can get another board member on there that works as hard as he did, if that's possible. So congratulations.
Thank you.
God bless I have to run off to another birthday party.
Oh, it's a tough life, ain't it? Okay. All right, back to mission trips. Year 4 was Central Florida. Small community just south of Lake Okeechobee. Lewiston, Florida. And again, we always have some certain thing that we're, like in McDowell County, West Virginia, was deliverance and banjo music. So again, now Florida, what do you think? Alligators and the dreaded Burmese python. So, we're always on the lookout for alligators and the Burmese python. So we stayed in a church auditorium. This was our sleeping area. They had a large kitchen so that we could cook our meals and all. Bathing was not at the church. I think it was five miles down the road at some kind of a bathhouse or something.
Bathing was optional.
Yeah, it was not too close. But again, a lot of floor work, painting. During we worked on this one trailer that at one point I remember I was standing on the ground underneath the trailer. It needed a lot of work. I mean, so we were actually pulling up the flooring, the subflooring, and then working our way back up. Somewhere along the line, somebody told us that that black stuff you've been pulling down, that's black mold. Would you like a mask to wear now? Yeah, that might be a nice idea after 2 or 3 days of working on that stuff. So, you know, over the years, you know, all of us have been exposed to quite a few things. Black mold and hopefully not a Burmese python or alligator, but this was myself. I had a one bad night. I got up in the middle of the night to make a run to the facility, and again, you know, you're trying not to wake anybody up. The lights are off. Few people are snoring happily, drowning out the sound of any fans that we had going. So somewhere along the line, I stepped on the end of a power cord, the metal end, in stocking feet. And I get to the bathroom, and again, it's like, what is this? It feels so wet on my foot. And then I somehow managed to find a light, and I could see that my big toe had been kind of split open or cut pretty bad. And I'm thinking, I probably just left the trail. So somehow I managed to, you know, find something to stop the flow of blood sitting there for an hour or two, and then kind of managed to get back to bed. I figured, well, you know, I gotta at least take a half a day off. Somebody's got to clean up the blood on the floor. I left the trail out to the bathroom. So, yes, I was granted a half day off. And then by the afternoon, I had it taped up enough and was able to get back to work. On the way home, for some reason, Bill said, you can drive. And I think he was falling asleep or was tired. I don't know if there was anybody else in the car. But it was like, all right, that way to I-95, just take it north. So I started in that direction, but somewhere along the line, after 45 minutes, I wasn't anywhere near I-95. I think I was out in the middle of a sugarcane plantation or a fruit grove or something. I have to wake up Bill. Bill, I think we need to get some better directions because there's no highway any near inside. So I don't know if we had a GPS or a map or something, but finally, yes, a guy stopped and needed directions. So I have to admit, I got lost. Not too bad, but we did get out of there and get home. Actually, this was another 2-day. We stopped at Judy Lafreniere's house, going down, and then from Judy's house down to Florida, and then on the way back, we stopped at Judy Lafreniere's house as well. So, all right, I would now like to call our next person, Steve O, or Steve Oakland, Bill's friend from Vermont.
Thank you. So, how many of you here knew Bill before he became a pastor? There's a couple, so I got to be careful with the stories that I tell them. I know some of you here have been involved with 3-day weekends such as Cursillo or Tres and I've been involved in community in northeastern New York and Vermont called Walk to Emmaus. And we have youth weekends that we call Chrysalis. Now, Bill, I don't know who chased you out of town that weekend, but I know we spent a weekend together in Keysville, New York,
Yeah,
about 20 years ago.
1996.
That would be about 21 years ago. on one youth weekend, and Keysville, New York, you've probably heard the movie River Runs Through It. Well, this is a church where the river actually did run through the basement of that church. So you have to be careful where you lay down your mat to sleep there. We've known each other for a few years since then. A few. And I'm going to keep this very short and just wish you and Robin the best in your
Oh,
retirement.
come on, tell them stories, you're good at that.
Keep going.
Okay, now, before I continue with more stories, and yes, I have more stories to tell. We're going to ask if anybody else who's not sitting up here would like to share a story, a favorite story about Bill. Doesn't have to be on a mission trip. It can be something from working with Bill, maybe music-wise or something, or any other areas.
Not taken.
No plates there, Marilyn, huh?
I roast Bill every week, I don't need more time.
Any religious sex stories or people connected with religious ed program? No stories? No other stories? All right, it's back to my stories. You had your chance. Anybody? Come on, Sherry? You got a story? Okay. All right, next mission trip was to Tennessee. 1 day drive from Plymouth, Connecticut to Tennessee, Nashville. And yes, we did stop at Jim's house and had a chance to say hello since he's not too far away, a couple hours. But Tennessee, the year that we went down, I don't know if you can remember back, it was probably like 8 or 9 years. We had a very hot summer here. Well, Tennessee also had that same extremely hot summer. The first day we worked, it was early afternoon. I remember it as clear as day. It was nearly 120 degrees in the sun. We worked on a deck for about 3 hours. We had a hammer in one hand and a bottle of water in the other hand. And you didn't have to worry about going pee because whatever you drank in, you just sweat it out. Where's Joyce Gorman? Is she here?
No, she's recuperating.
All right. I was going to say, this would have been Joyce Gorman's place. Because Joyce has, no, I shouldn't say she's not here, but when she drives anywhere too long in a car, you have quite a few stops along the way to get my drift. So this would have been the perfect place for Joyce. Because whatever Joyce drank, you wouldn't have to worry about going pee, along with anybody else. So we worked out there, if you remember, Bill, for about 3 hours. And then all of a sudden, Bill said, time out, we're done. And we just packed up, we drove back to wherever we were staying, I think it was at a church, and Bill went right in and just literally collapsed and fell asleep. And he was sleeping, but it was almost like a semi-conscious sleep. And for some reason, snoring seems to be a little bit louder you're that much deeper into sleep. I mean, you could have had a brass band walk by, and that would never have woken Bill up for at least 2 or 3 hours. And then he wakes up and he's like, hey, I'm feeling good. Let's go out and get something to eat. And it's like, okay. But after that, all of our remaining days, we tried to find something more indoors. And if it was putting insulation in ceilings and then ceiling tile, of course Bill is doing some floor work somewhere, but this is also where we had what we called the stinky doghouse.
Oh, God.
The stinky doghouse was a poor lady who had at least, what do you say, 5, 10 dogs? 10 dogs. And during the summer, you have the AC on, obviously, and the windows are shut. And the smell gets quite odoriferous. And for some reason, I was able to avoid this house for most of the week. until the last day. And the last morning, I think it was a Saturday morning, there was still a small thing to do. I think it was in the bathroom.
Front door.
Or the door, and it was like, Tom, you're my helper. And it was like, okay. And we figured it was gonna probably take 25 minutes to a half hour. We got it done, let me tell you, in about 12 to 15 minutes. I was reading his mind for whatever tool he needed next, because we could not hold our breath.
And I said, hey, I'm going to be printing out some things at the parsonage, and I'll get back to you, and we'll talk about it. He says, that's okay, we'll do that. Okay. Then I get a text. It goes like this. Bill, cutie, on the way. Oh, shit. Are you in the office playing games? Doug. Oh, Billy, I didn't know you cared. Heart, heart, heart. Bill, I care lots. See you in about 45 minutes. Doug, I know you drive fast, Bill, but you can't make it to Connecticut in 45 minutes. I love you anyways, even though you don't realize who you're texting. Bill, about 5 minutes later. Sorry.
I love you, Bill.
I guess so. What happens in Thomaston Church stays in Thomaston Church. All right. Chris from New York. I don't know if you can top that story, but come on down. Where is Chris from New York? Way in the back.
There he is.
Well, I wasn't really expecting to get to say anything, really. I've often found it hard to get a word in edgewise with and I was quite content just sitting back there listening, because I met Bill probably just prior to him becoming a pastor. It was very close, I know that much. And he was a lay director on a weekend for a walk to Emmaus. And
this is a retirement blessing. You started on this journey so many years ago, and now it's time to leave behind your friends you've come to know. You sought divine direction and a heart to do His will. Your work became your passion as you used your gifts and skill. You set the highest standards for yourself and others too, showing honor, pride, and dignity. They saw the best in you. A rags to riches story need not be your bottom line. The priceless things we gain in life often come from the divine.
Yes.
So you don't waste one more minute wishing for things that might have been. Rather, watch the seeds you planted grow and feel His peace within. I pray God keeps you safe and well wherever you may turn, surrounded by your loved ones, living out the dreams you earned. And in the quiet of your heart, may you hear God softly say, "My good and faithful servant, I'm so proud of you this day."
Thank you. The church is in the background. Now.
You can have the microphone.
I'm going to go get a haircut. Well, I really would like to thank you all for coming out tonight. This is
beyond expectation. I have a few words for Carol and Larry and all of you who pulled it off, but those words are thank you, and I very much appreciate it. There is one more sermon, so I will expect to see you all in church tomorrow. But thank you for the surprise. Thank you for coming up. I really did not expect to see her until July something. But you have made this journey for me so meaningful. And I can see changes in the church, changes in myself, and who knows where it's going to go. So my blessings to each and every one of you, and yeah, if you want to hear more, come tomorrow.